Welcome everyone to season 2, episode 1 of the Wednesday Night Live show. And I want to start off the show with the quote I heard the other day about advocacy. When the world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful. The goal of this show and my co-host this year in 2023 is to be that voice. We're going to try our hardest. We're going to do our best to make sure that our voices are heard this year. And our goal this year is to bring on some of the big names in the vape advocacy community and give them a platform to share their thoughts and their ideas with our community. So with that being said, let's say hello to Mr. Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hey, everybody.
Just wave, Tim.
Happy Wednesday to y'all. Good to see John here. The John Squared
Which John?
Affair. John Squared Affair. Good to see everybody fresh and new in 2023. I trust everybody had a reasonable New Year's Eve. I don't know. I'm kind of getting to that point where I'm like, I kind of treat it like a birthday. You know, I had Chinese food. I watched the run back of the Capitals hockey game because I thought the game was on at 7, but it was on at 4. So when I turned it on at 7, they were in post game. I'm like, what? So I ate Chinese food, watched a hockey game, and then me and the two wiener dogs hung out on the couch until the ball dropped. And I watched that awkward Miley Cyrus, Dolly Parton.
Easy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's just, it was all very surreal. And then
it sounds like you had a good old American New Year's Eve.
I had probably what some would consider an old person's New Year's Eve. Yeah.
Allie, welcome. And
Hey, thank you so much for coming, John. Yeah, I did the same thing. Just hung out at home in my pajamas, made food, baked cookies, watched TV. I did try to watch.
You bake cookies?
Yeah, I bake all the time.
God, dang it. And
well, that means she's got to send some to us now.
Yeah, she's got to. You got to share. You got to share.
I know there's spoils of your efforts.
And joining us tonight, he is John Dunne. He is the co-founder and current director general of the UK Vaping Industry Association, the UKVIA. I got it all there. Welcome, John, to the show, and thank you for being with us tonight.
No problem, John.
And how was your New Year's Eve? What did you do?
I was lucky. I had 2 of them. So the first one for the UK one, I was still in the air, so I had to rely on British Airways Wi-Fi to try and get some messages out, and then I watched the ball drop with my son here in Chicago. So it was pretty cool.
I'm kind of curious. Does the airport acknowledge? Do they do something? I always wonder. There are people always going to be on a flight when the ball drops.
Champagne toast, something.
Yeah,
this one was pretty boring. I remember I did fly one time on New Year's, and there was 4 people on a 747, and I remember the hostess came down. She said, "Well, what do you drink?" I said, "Vodka and Coke." She came back with about 20 of them, standing on the table, and said, "Call me when that runs out."
I always wondered because there's always somebody in the air when that happens, and I always wondered if the airplane, just dim the lights, whatever, start handing out glasses of champagne.
Oh, no, unfortunately not.
Oh well. And our man from Australia, Mr. Paul, how was your New Year's Eve? Summer New Year's Eve.
I did nothing. Nothing at all. I went fishing on New Year's Day, and I went fishing pretty much on Boxing Day. So I didn't do much at all.
Yeah, no, nobody. We had the big party at my house. Yeah, we have a big party at my house. We had probably we ended up with about 40-something people. But the funniest thing, the next morning, I opened a refrigerator. All the bottles of champagne were there. We forgot to open champagne.
What?
No, we forgot to.
How good were you feeling that you forgot?
It was. We had plenty of wine, but I was just shocked to see. I opened and we kind of all put them on the refrigerator door. There's 5 bottles there, and I was like, I opened and I go, wait a minute. Did we not toast the New Year's Eve? I was like, wait a minute, that is so wrong.
You always remember to break plates and stuff.
That's a family tradition. Yeah. Well, we don't. I did have to clean that mess up in the next day, but yeah. Well, this year was good because I made sure I told everybody explain to them the rules. You don't come to my house and break my plates. You have to bring a plate from your house that you use, or a cup or a mug or a glass that you use yourself. By breaking one of my plates, that would be getting rid of my bad luck. So bring a plate, and this was the first year everybody had their own mugs and plates, and it was just a big, huge mess in the backyard. But yeah, it was fun. My Indian neighbors always trip out, like, "Hey, you guys fighting over there? You guys having a domestic dispute? I hear part of being broken."
So note to self: John's parties, BYOP.
Yeah, bring your own. Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. We had a good New Year's. I was just shocked that we forgot the champagne. It's just I got 5 bottles of champagne. Maybe I'll share with you guys on the show tonight.
Yeah, well, there's. You said you had 5. Keep one for yourself, and then mail one to each one of us on the show. Catch John before he leaves, because I'm sure it'll cost you like $150 to ship it over to the UK.
Yeah. Paul can get his own champagne.
But just send it. Yeah, just send it there.
I love you, Paul, but yeah, I'm not paying that much money for a $5 bottle of champagne.
That one, we're just gonna throw it in the ocean and see if it floats.
Hope for the best.
Just a little note. This is for Paul. Oh, Tim, say hello to everybody in the chat.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to 2023 in this Wednesday's version, or edition, I should say, of the Season 2 Wednesday Night Live show. Let's go down the roster, at least the ones that I can see. Mallory Gates, first out of the gate, always, each and every show. Great to see you here, Mallory. Pam, wonderful to see you as well. Allie, there's Allie. I already see her. She's right in front of me.
She's right there.
Who's this Allie Boughner person?
I don't know.
I did say it right, didn't I? I did say it right.
Yes,
Tom Morowitz, great to see you. How are you, sir? Wonderful to see you here in the chat. Dusty Country Road is back. Dusty Country Road in the house, along with Michael Redfern. Great to see both of you here. Liana, wonderful to see you always. I think I got everybody? I think as I did it, yeah.
Did you say Pam?
I did say Pam.
Okay.
Did you say Pam?
And I always say it both ways, but I'm going to take the gamble on it. Spraggins.
I'm going to go with.
Well, I don't know. See, my mom was a school teacher for 40 years, so Spraggins might be implied as 2 G's, Spraggins. So with one less G, it might be Spraggins, but I'm going with Spraggins. She said yes. Look,
yeah, she said you're right.
Yes. She gave you the Ed McMahon yes. Yes.
I was way too over analytical there. I apologize.
Oh, well, let's get right into it. John, congratulations first off for being voted #1 e-cigarette click Vape Awards in the advocacy category. Yourself and your organization were both 1 and 2, and of course our man Nick Green there coming in 3rd place. How does that feel? I mean, that's knowing it's coming from us. It's not coming from the industry itself, but the community.
No, it's really good, and it's been a year of awards for us. Actually, this was the 3rd one that we've gotten this year. For us, we're an industry organization, so it's very rare that you do get some feedback from outside of the industry. So for me, I was kind of a little surprised, to be honest. I was looking at the lineup on it, and there's an awful lot of great advocates on there.
Yeah.
So I was surprised we came out like way ahead of quite a few people.
Yeah.
Well, no, any award that we get is great. It just reinforces the work that we're doing. Because as you all know, it's not always a nice place to be in. It's not a nice space to be in. We tend to take a lot of abuse, and wrongly so. So when something nice happens, I'll take it.
Yeah. Somebody said something to me the other day about advocacy too. And he said, advocacy is like going to the deli, taking the ticket number, and then looking up and seeing that they're only on 3 and you have ticket 1,000. I was like, fuck you. I was like, damn it. That's right on. That's spot on. That's how it feels sometimes. It's like, yeah. Okay. Before we jump into questions, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in this fight. Let's call it what it is.
Well, I kind of came into it by mistake. I used to work for a tobacco company years ago. That's what I did when I was in the States. Then I moved over to the UK about 12 years ago, and was introduced to this weird contraption called an e-cigarette. And at that stage in England, there was literally only two cigalikes, and that was it. There was the company I worked for and one other. And the conversations I had with most of the retailers consisted around, what the hell is an e-cigarette? And the second question was, I've already got one. Why the hell would I need another one? And then I still remember to the day conversations in the office talking about these things called e-liquids and open tank systems. And I still remember talking about it and going, yeah, that shit will never catch on. But it's, it's amazing to see, especially in the UK, how it's grown. So we've gone, we had 20,000 users at that stage when I got involved in it. And now we're up to 4.2 million. In this last year, we were up 8%. So we're really pleased with that. But the big difference, I think, in the world that I operate in and the world that you guys operate in is I've got a government that actually likes vaping. And it does make a huge difference. But the one thing I've noticed in the last probably 2 years is there's a massive amount now of negativity flowing into the country. There's a lot of money flowing into the country, into the anti-vaping side of things, because they want to get rid of this good news. They want to get rid of us. But we're not going to let them.
No, we know who you're talking about.
We don't say that name.
We're gonna try all year not to say that name. No, I'm kidding. I got one of the articles I want to touch on today on the show was back from August of 2022. I think it's one of your articles, illicit vapes and big problem in the UK. That article, you estimated between 40 and 60% of disposable vapes currently on sale in the country were either non-compliant or non-compliant with domestic laws or counterfeit. I'm sure you know that we have the same problem here in the U.S. With that being said, what is being done there to reduce that number? And do you feel that any efforts being done by the government to eliminate those numbers?
The government, for the most part, is pretty naive as to what's happening. Where we've been really working hard, and again, this is something that's really great about the UK, is all of the agencies speak to each other, including the industry. So, I talk with customs, I talk with the MHRA, I talk with trading standards, who are responsible for enforcing it at the retail level. And hell, I've even gone out on raids with the trading standards officers into stores. So I think there's a lot of effort happening around that. The biggest issue for us is we've got two regions in the country that are rife with illicit wholesalers, and it's not just for vaping products. It's clothing. It's anything that can be counterfeited. Goes through these areas. So they're very proficient at getting products into an island, undetected. And this is where 99% of these products are coming from. And unfortunately, for the Chinese manufacturers and offshore distributors, they're great markets because they pay cash. They place big orders and pay cash. The problem is they screw everybody else's market up. Now, the two things that we're concerned about with this problem is the retailers that they sell these products to are not the most reputable in the first place. So these are the guys that are selling the products to kids. So we've seen, the used vaping numbers, spiking up. The government, when I speak to them, are getting very concerned about it. So as an industry, we're literally going after our own in a way to try and rid it of these products. Because
Is
it's
the
just
profit margin that high though? I mean, is
yeah.
it that? Yeah,
It is. Well, most of these wholesalers don't pay taxes. They don't pay
right.
import duties, so they can actually sell the products below cost and still make 20-25%. So when you're selling hundreds of millions of these products every year, that soon adds up.
Yeah.
Plus, they're not using great ingredients. We don't know what they're using.
Yeah.
So when there's no regulation, you can put whatever you want in there and make a lot more money.
Yeah.
Well,
it says grape on there, but it tastes like cherry.
tastes like something else.
And there's the other thing too is like we've got two types of products as well. We got what we call gray market product, which is they're legitimate products. So they're Elf bars and those kind of products that are made for maybe the US market. And in fact, a lot of the products I pull off have made for sale only in the US on the side of it. It's not rocket science.
Well, the
so
black
we
market
know
product,
that we know kind of what's in those roughly.
Yeah. Well, that product also is probably more than the 2 mils as well. So you're 600 puffs is about 2 mils, right? I think that's the PTD is 6. So I'm
so
sure
you've got you end up with about 5 mil devices because it's usually the 1,500 to 3,500 puffs we get here mostly. So you're looking between 3 to 5 mil tanks, and then the 50 milligram nicotine strength, which again is 2.5 times the strength that's allowed. So that's what's got the press riled up. But even within that, I'm starting to see counterfeit products of the things like Elf Bar and Geek Bar, the top players out there. And in fact, when I go out with trading standards, I'll actually take pictures of the product and send it straight into Elf Bar's head office in Shenzhen via WeChat, and they'll tell me immediately whether it's counterfeit or not.
They have a scan code as well that you could check it. And I mean, we've come across a lot of fakes here.
Yeah. But how legitimate can that be? I mean, that counterfeit shop can be right next door to them.
Well,
literally right next door.
Elf Bar have shut down 24 factories.
Okay.
Yeah, they've done a lot. They've done a lot to fight it. Yeah.
So they care about their product, which is good. I mean, that's the way it should be. You don't want a counterfeit product floating around and someone getting sick and then come in. But same with what we've been dealing with a couple of weeks ago with the nonsense of the tester at the end of the line hitting each one. We all knew that was bullshit, but people outside of our community look at that and go, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?"
Everybody was blaming Elf Bar for that. I was like, that is not Elf Bar. That is definitely
no, but that's the stuff that bleeds into the social media streams and stuff, and kind of gets pushed around and shared. Nobody rarely is going to share like the proper process in a packaging lab, where it's moving down a conveyor belt and some guys in a white lab coat. But it brought up a question for me. So what you raised an interesting point is that a lot of the agencies are in communication with each other, that you all talk to each other. So you understand their challenges, they understand your challenges. Everybody gets to see how everybody views the playing field. Do you find that the fact that you're proactive and helping to shut down the black market, or at least, disrupt it as much as you possibly can, does that resonate with the politicians and the people at the bureaucratic level? Because they see that we're not on the bad side of all of this. We're not trying to put vapes in kids' hands.
Yeah, it does with a certain subset of those politicians, but we still have, you still have a subset that are anti-vaping. There's, that still believe that, that nicotine causes cancer and it's a gateway and all of that bullshit. But the good thing is the majority of the major players know what's going on. The two things that I get my ears bent about at the moment is youth vaping and what are we doing about that, and then the environmental impact. The UK is probably one of the strictest places to live as far as your environmental awareness and recycling. you should see the outside of my house. I got a bin for friggin' everything. It's nuts.
Yeah.
So that's where most of the grief is coming from me, especially with the disposables. So one of the things that we'll be doing, well, now this year, is we're going to be getting the recycling companies, the government agencies, and the factories in Shenzhen all around the table to say, right, how can we, work with the recyclers to make sure we're producing devices that they can easily recycle, and how do we, work as an industry to go and get these things picked up and get them to the recyclers. So hopefully by the end of that roundtable, we should come up with some positive news that we can then go back to the agencies and go, right, we've got the problem solved. Get off our back.
Yeah. But is that something that they look for out of you? I mean, obviously, the staunch anti-vapors are going to just already have their stick in the mud. They're probably not going to budge. I mean, I wouldn't even gather to guess what it would take to get to change their mind. But in that sense, does that also resonate? They see that, that you're actually taking a proactive approach to being concerned about the environment. I imagine they put you under a microscope from many different angles.
Well, the nice thing was we just had our annual forum there about a month and a half ago, and the agency directors actually came to the forum to view it. And about a half hour before the session went on, they're like, can we jump on the panel? It's like, yeah, knock yourself out. The more the merrier. And then the agency that's involved in managing and enforcing the rules around the recycling, they reached out directly to me and said, listen, we're looking at this closely now. Here's the 4 or 5 things we've got a problem with, and we're not going to be doing anything till probably about April. So what can we do between now and April to solve this problem to make my life easier? So that's the proactive way that we work. So that at least gives us a few months of breathing room to try and get this resolved. But most countries don't do that.
I was going to say what I wouldn't give for that kind of transparency here.
Yeah. I think you brought it up before, Allison. Just an exchange program with the manufacturer would be just amazing.
I mean, if the FDA would just be clear with what they actually want from us, we would do that for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's just.
Well, I'm talking about them over there. We're fucked.
The black market here is flooded with disposables because a lot of states can't get anything.
I mean, even the vape shop just having some sort of return policy with the disposables just to get a 15% discount on your next device. Something like that would be great. And let's be honest, when's the last time you actually saw a used vape pen on the ground?
One time.
One time
down at the mailboxes.
He probably lost it.
No. No. I mean, it actually caught me. It shocked me because we've talked about it multiple times, and it's been in lots of articles of articles of concern that these disposables are going to be a threat to the ecological systems and all that other stuff. But when I went down there and I saw it on the ground, it was like the first time I actually saw somebody be that lazy that they just chucked the box and the dead stig on the ground. And I was like, my first thought was, wow, there's somebody actually threw a vape on the ground. And then I thought, how ignorant of a person does that person have to be? Because it didn't have to be just that. It could have been a soda cup from the fast food restaurant or something. When you just think about the laziness of someone being that ignorant to throw trash just in a public area like that.
Yeah.
If the box was there too, maybe he opened it and it didn't work and he got mad.
Well, I wasn't gonna.
Should I hit this?
I wasn't gonna test it like the guy in Sengen, but that's
right, still good.
Well,
still
got
tastes
at
like
least
low
30
quality
puffs.
menthol. Yeah,
Still got like 30 puffs. Hey, Paul, you got something you want to throw at John there, buddy? He's thinking.
No, well, I was thinking, but I was also answering a question for someone.
Yeah.
With the policies that you've got in the UK, and you guys are in a good place for the most part when it comes to vaping policy. Now that disposables are becoming an issue, like environmentally. I can walk to the end of my street and I can find at least 10 to 15 in the gutter as I walk up the road.
Wow.
It's not pretty here because of what the government's done. But do you think that the ministers and the politicians will listen to the recommendations that you guys are putting together? And if so, how many do you think they will take on board? And how many do you think they're just going to be going, oh, no, we can't do this, we can't do this? How much pushback are you going to get at that point?
Well, one of the things, let me say, I'll try and answer the first part first. The government here isn't going to mess with vaping that much. The reason being is they've got a goal of being smoke-free by 2030. There's not a hope in hell of them doing that unless they can increase the vaping community by 40%. So they're not going to do that. They're not going to do much. So they're not going to increase taxes. They're not going to ban flavors. They're not going to do any of that. But one of the things that we've put forward to them, or two of the things, is around youth access. We've got a ridiculously low fines here. So it's illegal to buy a vape if you're under 18, or to buy it for anybody under the age of 18. But if a store sells it, they'd be lucky if they get fined 250 quid. That's it. So I've called for the fines to be increased to £10,000.
Australian numbers.
Well,
That's how it should be.
The reason we want to do that is all I hear from these trading standards officers is that they're underfinanced. They don't have the capacity to do these raids or store the product or dispose of it. So if those fines are coming in, that money then would go directly to them to help them to do more enforcement. The second part of the suggestions that we've made is around licensing of vape retailers and distributors. And part of that, we want to have robust age verification mandatory, even though by law they have to have it, but many don't. They would have to only stock legal products. And that goes for the distributors as well. And again, put massive fines in place. If they don't follow the rules, they lose their license and they can't operate. Yep. So these are all sensible steps that the government here can quickly adopt, that will be sensible and reasonable. And especially when the industry is backing it, it makes it real easy. You've got nobody to object to it, although we've got a few of the convenience store associations are a little bit unhappy with it, but tough shit, I don't care. Our role is to protect the industry. That's what we've got to do. That's what we've got to do.
It's that old saying, if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about.
Well, exactly. If you're selling the right stuff, you don't get fined. If you don't sell to kids, you don't get fined. It's not a difficult thing.
Yeah.
The only challenge is, like, in this country, we don't have such a reliance on ID, for instance, that you do in the States. But kids have to have ID to go to the bar at 18. So, if they're over 18, they should have ID for that. It's not that hard.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not that hard. Kind of cool. This may sound like a funny question, but does the king himself ever bring up vaping? Is a bit, because he is one of those guys that's all about the environment, and this would be something that he would be interested in, making sure there's some change in recycling a battery, because he's all about the environment.
Thank God, no, he hasn't.
Okay, he hasn't. He's never brought.
Neither has the third prime minister we've had in the last year either.
Okay, so it hasn't even gotten. It hasn't gotten to the level where we've gone all the way to the big boy. I mean, it's all the way up to the president has said the word vaping. I was just wondering if him being the environmentalist that he is, that this might have drawn his attention. Is like, what are we doing with all these batteries? If we have 4.2 million,
so far not.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's a good thing. Keep him
more worried about that ink well that was sitting in front of him.
I think he's got enough problem keeping the kids in checks.
Yeah. And so, where are those kids today? Now, all right, I'm going to be very careful with this question, not to upset our community. but do you feel there's a difference between how advocacy is approached within the vaping community between our two countries? And I'm talking about us, not I'm talking about the user.
I think there is a little bit. Obviously, you've got far more different advocacy groups in the US than we have, and I think that's a challenge. We work very closely with. We've got 2 vaping organizations. We've got a couple of consumer groups as well. We all talk. We all have our own viewpoints, but we all share information and resources and things like that. Whereas here, I think you've got so many different factions, doing their own thing. It's very hard, I think, to mobilize and get that one voice and that one opinion across. I think the other thing as well is that because we've had regulations for much longer period of time, I think we're resigned to the fact that regulation is a good thing. I remember when the Avali situation hit in the US, I was sitting there blessing myself, going, "Thank God for the TPD," because that saved our ass. But I've seen the US fight regulation when the TPD was going through the process, going, freedom of choice. We're not going to have all that shit over here. Yeah. And then I think because of that, then we ended up with the FDA taking it on board and screwing up the whole thing. So I think you guys are in a really tough position.
Well, we want regulation. We just want clear and fair regulation and not changes happening to a process after the date that things are due. I mean, it makes it kind of hard to comply when they make it so impossible to even, and then when you do follow what they want, they still deny your application.
Yeah. It was a misprint, Allison. It was a misprint.
How do you know that it's not appropriate for public health if you haven't even let me get to that part?
read the fine print.
Yeah.
If you consider, I can get a product submitted and approved within 28 days for sale in the UK.
Oh,
and it will cost about maybe £2,000 per product at a maximum.
Yeah, right. That's affordable. It's just
insane.
Yeah. Well, I think a key difference there is probably because you had some thought out and well-placed guidelines as to how that process was to take place, and including, and I think this is the biggest factor, which is probably the most glaring one in the differential between the two. It's not so much the TPD and the smaller tank sizes and those types of things. I think here, if that was forced on people here, people would adapt and get used to that sort of thing. I don't, it's like change with anything. If that's your option and you can still have it, you'll be willing to kind of deal with that. What you do behind your bedroom door and glue 14 tanks together to make it bigger, then that's on you. But I think the most glaring differential is that you had the medical community and the scientific community standing behind your back going, hey, look, we're showing that this is actually a net health benefit to adults and what it can do with getting people away from smoking. Here, of course, the big hitter medical communities that at one point did support the vaping community, or at least supported vaping to some degree, quickly flipped their lid and then, went hardcore against it. And, we're everything from ED to hair loss to cancer risk to mouth slime, everything. It's like, we
popcorn.
Exactly. Actually, funny that you brought it up, but I won't tell a long story. I had a conversation about that with someone at the club about 2 weeks ago who is a vapor, and they didn't understand it. But anyway, but here we just don't seem like we can get a leg up. Like, we do have some factional studies that happen, but those don't make it to Congress. They don't make it in front of the people who the FDA. They reject that. So that's what kind of makes our fight harder. I think that's my opinion.
Well, I think the biggest difference is how we view smoking and nicotine. So with you've got the challenge of nicotine. Nicotine is bad. Nicotine kills. Nicotine does this. Nicotine does that. We very rarely hear about nicotine. We don't talk about it at all. It's all about smoking. And this is where this whole 95% less harmful than smoking comes in. Our government couldn't care less whether people are taking nicotine. They couldn't care. All they care about is, do you smoke or do you not smoke?
Yeah.
And if you're smoking, how the hell do we get you onto something that's safer and that's less costly? And I think what really helps that is the fact that the government is footing the bill for our entire medical health. So they know if they can get somebody off of cigarettes, their health is going to improve.
Right.
Is it going to improve to make them, invincible and perfect and, all of this? No, but it's going to make them a hell of a lot healthier than they are at the moment. And I think that's the big challenge, is to try and change that narrative in the US, because you guys, it's all I hear in the US is nicotine kills, nicotine does this.
Well, yeah, they're
does
pushing those.
Yeah.
I mean, that Brian King put out another amazing article today. So great. And he literally said, like, we're pushing safer alternatives and getting rid of the addictive qualities and pushing safer cigarettes. And I'm like, did I just read that right? Safer cigarettes?
Yeah.
So y'all taking all the other stuff out of it too, or just the nicotine? Because I'm not seeing how it's safer.
No, they got to leave all that other stuff. They got to
Yeah.
leave that stuff in there.
Yep.
Yeah. Let me anybody, or do I go?
No,
Go ahead, Paul.
You go.
No, John, go back to 21 here in Australia when our government brought in the prescription model, and we watched an industry get crushed pretty much overnight. 30% of our industry was just swallowed up and they walked away from it. But now they're talking doubling down on this again, either restricting specifically, they're not going to get rid of the prescription model as far as we're aware of. But in doing that, and our doctors here, they don't want to know about vaping. And we've got the same medical system as you guys, like with NHS or a like publicly funded health system. They don't really care about it. And the $17 billion in taxes from tobacco, that's a drop in the bucket in comparison to the $132 billion that they're spending each year on helping people that have issues from smoking-related disease and illness. What are we going to do here in Australia if they just keep going? Like, we know that we're screwed, but being bent over even further, we don't know what to do here anymore.
Yeah, I remember it must be about 5 years ago now. I gave evidence to the Australian government, and my head was just exploding after the session. It was like absolutely insane. And all they can, your smoking rates aren't going down. It's not getting any better. But the problem I find, though, especially when I talk to foreign governments and I talk about what's happening in the UK, they go, "Oh well, we don't care about the UK. We don't care what you guys are doing." Especially the Irish government. Oh my God, I must have been an hour and a half session with those guys over there, and they're even worse than Australia.
Yeah.
But all we can do is kind of keep reinforcing the fact that what they're doing is failing. It's the same thing with these flavor bans, in the States, and now we're starting to see them creep in here in Europe. The second you ban the flavors, smoking rates go up. It's like, oh, how did that happen? It's really difficult, and I really feel sorry for the people in Australia, because you're just getting screwed royally, and it's going to do is lead to a really bad black market, and I don't know where that's going to go. So people are going to start getting hurt.
Well, the black market here now, once the once the prescription bottle came into play, because I've been in and around the industry since 2014. Within 24 hours of that prescription model being brought in, I was getting emails from different manufacturers all throughout China. Would you like disposables? Would you like disposables? I thought, hang on a second. We just put this in play why now all of a sudden? The other big community here that were major smokers was the mining community over in Western Australia and up through the different regions here. Now, a lot of them switched to vaping, and their companies were actually saying this is a good thing. Yet the Western Australian government, where the majority of the mines are now, they're also doubling down, and we've also got a lot of bad or misinformation coming from the different lobby groups in Western Australia. And you know the names that I'm talking about: DWALB and Cancer Council, WA Cancer Council, Victoria, Lung and Heart, all the body parts organisations. They're all now coming up with the exact same script as what we've been hearing coming out of the United States. And I've tried saying to people of government here, I said, last time I looked, we're still part of, under the British section of law. I said, since when are we taking on US ideals and laws for that matter? But I don't think they're understanding. And the dark money that we're now currently seeing here in Australia, and I'm going to say this about the universities, they have been tainted. Undeniably tainted now. And even when I finished a degree that I've just finished, I was dumbfounded as to what I'm moving on into now, which is nicotine chemistry and science. They said to me that, which tobacco company do you work for then, if you're going to come and study that?
Yeah.
And I went, excuse me?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. If I want to study something about a specific molecule, I should be allowed to. But now I'm being, painted with the same brush as everyone.
You probably could have got. You probably would have gotten better love if you were going in to study opiates.
No.
We need more. No, I'm kidding.
No, not particularly.
Yeah.
Well, even with my degree in organic chemistry, that's what opioids is all about. That's organic chemistry.
Yeah.
First and foremost. But honestly, where do we go from here? And we've got another discussion period coming that'll be up on the 13th of January. And since our previous health minister, Greg Hunt, and now our new health minister, and by the way, he's been having secret meetings with Chapman, DWALB, Swanson, Banks, and the ilk of these people. And we don't even get a seat at the table. It doesn't make any sense anymore. New Zealand's starting to see the dark money there now, and it's becoming apparent. And honestly, I think we're just a petri dish for testing anything stupid to happen, like both here in Australia and Canada. I think they're the two are the catalysts for this stupidity that's just being handed out all over the world now. I don't know what to think.
I tell you, you got to run for office, Paul. Got to run for office. John,
I'd call someone a cunt within the first 5 minutes.
But that's normal. That'd be normal for you guys over there. Let me put this link in the chat, and John is going to talk to you about the UK vaping industry's economic impact report. And I share the link in the chat, guys. So if you want to go ahead and look at that, he's got it right there in his hands. There it is. Yeah, you can check out. It's a what do they call it? It's a PDF file. Yeah, PDF file. So you guys can kind of scan through. It's like 60-something pages, 61 pages to be precise. As you know, here in the U.S., science and reports done or paid for by the vaping industry are looked at as bullshit. Not just from our government, but also from the general public. Do you feel that this report has been taken serious by the general public there in the UK and by your government? Your government pretty much, like you said, as far as nicotine's fine, we don't give a shit. But is this report being looked at seriously? And can that be used in other countries? Should other countries be looking at that impact report?
Well, one of the reasons that we picked the CEBR is that they are a highly reputable organization that do these reports from many different industries. So that's one of the reasons that we picked them. Yes, we got some pushback from certain factions. Putting the whole Article 5.3 bullshit on us. But the fact that we had 3 of the leading politicians at our forum and at the launch of it said a lot. A copy went out to every single politician in the UK the day before release, so they were all aware of it. Now, whether they actually read it or not is another thing. But once it's out in the public, we can now start using this information to target specific politicians. So what we wanted this to focus on was looking at, for instance, high smoking regions in the UK. I'll take Blackpool as the top of that list. You have highest smoking rate in the UK, and you have a local council or a local government that is anti-vaping. So we'll be using this report to target that, and kind of putting pressure as well on a lot of these areas where perhaps vaping, is providing an awful lot of jobs and rejuvenation of the high streets here. So again, if that local MP is not pro-vaping, the election's coming up in 2 years' time. Look at how much vaping is contributing to your constituency.
Yep.
I think you need to start taking it seriously. And if that doesn't work, then we'll go to the voters in those areas. So this is the reason that we did this report, because for us, data is very difficult to get. And again, we really focused on how all of the positive things that vaping was contributing. So, how much it is contributing to jobs, retail, to the exchequer and taxes, but also then to the broader healthcare savings. And that's where, we're coming in at close to £3 billion in net benefit from vaping here in the UK, which is a huge number for us. And if you could do something like that in the States, I'm sure the number would be really, really large. But it's whether it falls on ears that will listen is yet to be seen.
Yeah. Well, Allison, we have to do some sort of report with the PMTAs, right? Don't they have?
They want like an economic impact and stuff.
But
like
what
that.
did we did something for that? I remember a couple of years back where they required some companies to show, or was the states the vape shop showing how it would affect these shops?
We were using those numbers that Lindsay was graciously providing to fight flavor bans or to fight things that would make vape shops shut down, and how that would impact each state. And she's got I think it's Tobacco Harm Reduction 101 is the website, and she's got something there for every single state. So.
And it went to deaf ears.
Yeah.
There was a section of it, the EIS, economic impact, as to what your PMTA could do. There was a question within the PMTA.
There was the economic impact.
Yeah, there was that section. But again, the PMTA, that needs to be thrown in the bin and completely rewritten from the get-go, because that's absolutely stupid.
Well, it surprises me hearing John talk about how cheap it was for him to put out a new flavor tomorrow, and how quickly that flavor could be on shelves. And it just kind of blows me away that our door's pretty much closed now. So, what's been done is done. So now we're just kind of waiting to see if this process is going to, like Allison said, it just keeps changing. 1 week it's this, and then the next week you need to do this, and so it doesn't seem.
And that's what we're fighting for. I mean, that was the whole idea of the lawsuit that the USVA just filed. It's because there's no small business pathway. We want regulation, but we want clear guidelines, and we want a pathway that a small business can survive and actually afford to get through. And a lot of people are now afraid to move forward with the rest of the process for their synthetic, because you spend all that money and then you can end up having to shut down your shop because they're not going to accept it anyway. And so a lot of people are kind of like in that situation where they don't know what to do because we can't get any clarity, and we can't even get a conversation with Brian King. I mean, you saw, at the when we actually did get to have him speak, I think he left his damn sneakers on the stage. He ran off so fast, like he would not answer any questions.
Exit stage left.
And then and then 20 minutes later, he's pictured with Dick Durbin, and it's like, wow, we see where this is going.
His name's Snagglepuss. Okay, it's not Brian King anymore. Right, exit stage left. Right? But here's the question though, John. How many US manufacturers, liquid manufacturers, have you seen or are you seeing now wanting to either co-pack or set up shop in the UK or the surrounding regions?
Surprisingly, very few. I thought we would have seen more. I think they're starting to look at other markets. The UAE, for instance, is up and coming. In fact, I'm in the process of working with them to set up an association there. I'm working with the government. I work with the World Vape Show there, and we had the MHRA set to go and speak at the Vape Show last year. Until the World Health Organization made a complaint to the UK government and put the kibosh on that the week before. In fact, they did. Action for Smoking and Health did. And there was a couple of agencies, I think. University of Oxford complained. But, they're tearing their hair out at the moment because all of these institutions don't want the positive news coming out of the UK, and I'm hell bent to spread the word. So I've got 2 UK politicians set to come out, I think, to Dubai next year to talk, and see if we can get the government in that region going. But yeah, it's just nuts.
Are the vape shops profiting? Are you seeing more openings and more flavors coming out?
We saw a dip around a valley, and then unfortunately we got hit here with the COVID, where they shut the vape stores down. They were deemed to be not essential, so we lost probably about 800 stores through that process. But they quickly rebounded. We're starting to see those stores now being reopened. We're seeing quite a bit of consolidation in chains here. So, people putting their resources together and creating large chains. So, we're in a pretty healthy position. As we said, like last year, we saw, the amount of people vaping increased by 8%. The high streets are starting to get back to normal again. And we've got a huge online market, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
The big difference now is the market has swung very much into the realms of disposables. And when they first hit, probably about a year and a half ago, we saw liquid sales decrease by about 25%. And we saw a lot of kids trying to buy these things. But after about 8 months, we started to see that change. Now it's older, more entrenched smokers that are starting to use these things, but they're not staying on them very long. So they're maybe staying on them maybe 5 weeks, 6 weeks, something around that.
Yeah.
Because they quickly figure out, is it a hell of an expensive way to vape?
Yeah.
And they end up going to an open tank system or a pod system that's a little bit more affordable. So for that reason, I think disposables have a place.
Yeah.
But do we need 7,500 different disposables currently in the UK? No. Elf Bar probably does 70% of the entire business in the UK. So I think we've got about 6 months to 12 months of this craziness of disposables. It'll settle down to a natural level. There'll be 5 or 6 major players, that are making money out of it, and the rest will just disappear.
Well, the UK has been known to be more of the mouth to lung user. And since I can remember far back, I mean, a lot of the vape groups that I was in, a majority of the UK members were usually, mouth to lung users. They were using, smaller devices. They weren't using the SMOC TF68 or, tank, and they were pretty much using mouth to lung stuff. So I can see how that switch over to the disposable could happen for you guys, being that it's more of a tighter draw for that person. But yeah, we can never get rid of them. I mean, we still need to be able to have that impulse buyer that's standing at the register, say to himself, maybe I'll give this a try, and not have 7,000 to choose from. He doesn't need 7,000.
A lot of people will buy both. Like in our shops, that's what we see. Like adults, they'll come in and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to the beach tomorrow, and I don't want to bring my vape, so I'm going to grab a disposable." Or like me, like I'm going on a trip. I don't want to fly with all my vape stuff. I'll just grab a couple disposables for my trip. I think that's more of the pattern. We sell a lot of open systems still, and a lot of our liquid. We just sell a lot of we cannot keep elf bars in stock. It is crazy. I told my boss, I'm like, the next paycheck I get is going to be signed by elf bar. I feel like, because that's
elf bar.
And we do age verify. We do scan every ID at our
you
vape shop.
guys
So
do.
we are selling to adults. Adults really do like those elf bars.
So
go ahead,
John.
Tim. No.
Well, I
ahead.
had a couple questions
Go
for John. So, I mean, obviously, advocacy is still required, even in an environment where, you feel like, you don't have the walls kind of coming down in on you, but you still have resistance and people kind of, wanting to see vaping eradicated. So from the outside looking in, being an advocate in that space, do you see a lot of money flowing in to those particular politicians who are looking to particularly fight against vaping? And then on top of that, outside looking in, why do you think that there's such a stark difference in how all these different governments are either pro or against vaping? What do you think their agenda is, specifically more when it comes to the anti side?
The first part of your question, it's difficult here for politicians to take money and take it covertly, which is a great thing. So normally where the dark money hits is it's funneled in through the University of Oxford and tobacco tactics. And what they try and do is they will drip feed the media. So they will pay for media stories to be written. And in fact, I think it was about a year ago, somebody blew the whistle on them because they get reporters to sign NDAs saying that they can't disclose where the money came from and that the money was funded by Bloomberg and all this sort of stuff.
Sure.
And somebody leaked the NDA before they signed it. So that kind of backfired. But if I pull up myself on tobacco tactics, 90% of the stuff on there is bullshit.
Yeah.
So I every so often I write to them to tell them, feel free to come down to our offices. We gladly share whatever information you want. Because we're open book. But I think where the issues come in is more on which government is more closely aligned to the World Health Organization. That's where the major money is getting funded. And if you look at the narrative from the World Health Organization over the last 15 years, as soon as Bloomberg started pumping money in there, it switched from being positive on vaping to being negative on vaping.
Yeah.
And this is where we get a lot of pushback, even in the UK. Is well, why would the World Health Organization say it's bad? Because they're getting paid to.
Yeah.
And that's where the difficulty we come across. But I got called like a child killer every day. I get called a tobacco shill because our organization has tobacco companies as members. They have had from day one because that's what we're set up to do. We're a trade organization, so we can't exclude companies that are legitimately involved in the industry. They have a legal right to be in there. Do they control our organization? Hell no.
Yeah.
In fact, they're driven mad because of me. They don't like the fact that our organization has tripled in size, because every time I bring on a new member, they get less say in what we do. So for me it's a fun game, but it really kind of proves now to the government that we are an organization that they can trust.
Yeah.
And that's really pissing off a lot of people. An example of it would be our forum that we held. We had Action for Smoking and Health writing to every one of our speakers, writing to every health department, NHS trust, every politician, saying that they need to boycott the UKVIA because of Article 5.3, which is, again, it's a misuse of that piece of legislation. But that's the problems that we all face. But I just do it in an environment where at least half the people are sane that listen to me.
Yeah. John, did you have a question?
No, I was going to let Paul go, or Allie. Allie needs to say. Allie, you're up.
Well, I mean, I would like to focus on something positive. So kudos to you guys.
Positive?
Kudos to the UKVIA for doing April, and doing that, awareness month. I think too, a lot of advocating, I think it's not all based around fighting. I think it's also based around advocating to smokers to make the switch. So there's always going to be a need for advocacy. It's just that we're in such a bad situation right now that we look at advocacy as that we're constantly fighting, those three-letter organizations, instead of fighting to spread the message so smokers can say, hey, there's another alternative out there that could possibly work for me. So I think that's an amazing thing that you guys do. And you guys started that, correct?
Yeah. The reason we started it was because the government here had a program called Stoptober. However, they didn't feature vaping products. So, we thought that was a huge miss. And I'm really pissed because I missed the first one by a day. Because we had it set to go on April 1st, and I was visiting my kids here in Chicago, and I was scheduled to be back in the UK that the evening before. And then we had a phone call from some politicians going, we hear you've got this thing called Vapor going. How do we get involved? We'd like to launch it in Parliament. I get a call from my guys going, yeah, they want to launch it in Parliament, but it's going to be on the 31st. Is that okay? I'm like, fuck yeah. So we had about 15 politicians holding up a Vapor banner outside of Parliament, and that was our first launch. But it was, for us, it was just something that we wanted to do with our members, create a little bit of awareness. And then we started saying, well, how do we spread this out? How do we get it out to other countries? And we thought, well, do we license it? Do we try and make some money? I'm like, screw that. I'm like, just give it out. Let people just spread the word. And I think, we're this will be our 6th year doing it now.
Wow.
Nice.
So, what I want to try and do is, the US has been really slow actually to pick it up, which has kind of peeved me off a bit.
No kidding.
So, if we can get the organizations over there to do a stateside Vapor, happy days.
Yes, I always post about it, and I'm the president of South Carolina Vaping Association, so we could totally do that in South Carolina. I know that everybody would be on board with that.
Yeah, I got to go down the road.
Nobody can say no to
kick,
you, Allie. It would work. No one can say no to
I've
you.
I've got to go down the road and kick Tony Abu from the VTA, because he's only like 15 minutes down the road from here. So.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Good luck with that. But I think that's just an amazing thing you guys do to really promote the advocacy and and the idea of switching. And I'm just going to leave because I'm going to go upstairs and start packing my bags so I can move to the UK, because all this just sounds so wonderful that it's like I don't understand how it's possible.
Yeah, I'm going too. So I've been planning that trip for the last 4 years, and
Oh, I'm not coming
COVID.
back.
Oh,
and-
it looks like we'll be launching there this year, so that's fine.
yeah,
That's
Well,
that's
you've got the UKVIA forum November 10th next year. So
yeah.
Oh, this year
Oh, wait a minute.
we're in
It's
2023.
in November. It's in November.
I know, not no. Sorry,
Because
It's
I know you don't
October,
want to be
isn't it?
nowhere near the UK in November.
why?
What? Huh?
What's wrong with November in the UK?
Rain every day.
Oh,
That's-
man.
No, that's just every day.
That's
Yeah,
typical.
That's just every day.
It's not November. That's any month
Yeah,
of the year.
we only have like 2 weeks of where the sun may shine,
Yeah,
and that's
Yeah.
sporadically somewhere between July and August.
yeah.
We've got 2 weeks.
It's just in a certain area too, right?
Yeah,
right by the
isn't-
castle.
Isn't it
But
the
anyway.
UK in October, and then not long after that's COP10? Because
Yep.
that's right. I'm
How-
just trying to remember where I'm going to be
Yeah.
at the end of this year.
And now is vaping promoted on the television and newspapers? Is that something that they stopped? That was one of the things that they said you guys weren't allowed to do is advertise, correct?
Yeah, so brands can't use the television, radio for advertising. Unfortunately, the antis can. But the interesting thing is, as a trade association, we can as well.
Yeah.
We did a newspaper facts not fiction campaign. Probably about 3 years ago now. COVID has really messed up my years. I don't know
Yeah.
where 2 years of my life went. But we spent 6 months trying to get a full page advertisement into a national newspaper. It took us 6 months to get it approved. And we had the BBC, which is the biggest news station here, come and do a whole piece on it. And they ran it for 15 segments on the morning news.
Yeah.
Watched by 10 million people. It was great. And all it was health, claims that public health had made, the Royal College of Surgeons. We just put them all on one page and said, right, here's the facts, not the fiction, So we're going to try and do more things like that. But unfortunately, we have a limited budget to work with.
Well, we have plenty of money. We can send you some.
I have recorded that.
Yeah, exactly. It's got you on record now.
Just give me a loft there in London. I'll be fine.
John sells
problem.
broken plates
Yeah.
on the street
Yeah.
corner.
I'll send you my bank details.
Yeah.
You can fill it out.
I'm sure I'll be a stone throws away from a pub, right, Craig?
I'll get you into the pub inside of Parliament.
There you go.
Yeah. Ounces? We don't have ounces here.
That's worth the donation.
Yeah, that's worth it.
You're going to have to learn how to drink pints.
Pints. Yeah, pints. The only
Pints,
time I
and
drink
a lot
pints.
of them.
Yeah.
Plenty of them.
The only time we have pints is
It's none of that a weak American beer either.
Yeah.
It's
no
real
Coors
beer.
Light.
Fuck. Here we
Yes,
go.
if you want to get laughed out of the bar.
No, John, don't worry about it. He's got a hankering to get into the Fosters. Just feeding that shit.
Have you bought one of those yet, John?
Fosters? Yeah, I did for the show. Remember, just to
okay.
Paul. I haven't had a Fosters in a long time.
Yeah. See,
No.
we know the truth now.
Yeah.
He didn't like it the first time he drank it.
It wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't a beer that I would want to drink all the
Well,
time.
the Aussies don't drink it either.
Yeah, they don't drink
No.
it either. No, they don't drink it either. They don't drink it either. They don't.
So I had a question then. So
Knock yourself out.
Well, obviously, I mean, this is a show that's driven heavily on the idea that vape advocacy needs to keep pushing forward. But John, coming from your place, I mean, I know you come from a little bit sweeter spot in the world, but when you look and you look out around the landscape, what would be some advice? Because we get a lot of people that watch the show every Wednesday. What would be some of your advice to them to kind of keep their chin up and some strategy or some angles that they could take to continue to vape either independently or with an organization?
I think the two things that I've learned is you need to be consistent in your messaging, and you need to remain calm. Don't take things personally. A lot of the venom that gets thrown at you is not against you; it's against what you're fighting for. And I think that's what a lot of people get upset about, and then they end up in a screaming match with somebody, or it just gets out of control. And that's one thing that I've always said with my guys is I don't care what the interview is, I don't care what the subject is, I don't care who we're going up against. I'll do any interview, and I come out with the same thing, and they can try and beat me down. I don't care.
Yeah.
For me, it's a very personal thing. I had a politician the other day ask me, he's like, why do you do what you do? And I said, because both my parents died from lung cancer. That's why.
Yeah. Darn good reason.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the most solid reasons to fight for it. I mean, I think I think maybe part of the problem that you find with advocacy here specifically, because I think out of the gate, I think everybody was really energized about it. I think everybody, for a lot of us, I don't think many of us had ever really kind of given government two thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, we never really felt like our lives were impacted by the shifting or change of a president, or what was going on in the halls of Congress. I mean, and maybe we start to become more observant of those things as we get older, because, we start thinking about retirement and where our lives are going to be for the next, handful of decades or whatever. But I think out of the gate, everyone was really positive, and it was all about fight, fight, fight. And then they get discouraged because they find that the heavy-handed government and the city governments, seem to have this power that they just can't defeat. And, what we want to do here on this show is to continue to inspire people to advocate, to not give up that fight, because like with a million other social issues, people, fall into their bubbles, or they get into their own sort of, myopic, it's self-preservation. Now, I don't care what happens to the greater mass of this conglomerate that are vapors. It's like, I just want to make sure I can still get my stuff, and that's what I care about most. But here, we want to try to find the right way to continue to inspire people to collectively have that fight. And so I'm always curious with people that were, a lot deeper into the advocacy space than ourselves. Most of us are just consumer advocates, really. I mean, we're not, we don't have the seat at the table with politicians on the regular. So it's good to get your.
No, I'm kidding.
Not me.
No, I think in the beginning, I think everyone with us, and John has brought it up, we just had so many different organizations throwing information at us to do this, don't do this, don't, contribute here, don't contribute here. And I think a lot of us got overwhelmed. We didn't know where to put our efforts in anymore. And then anytime we did do something, there was another group was telling us we were wasting our time. And that's how I felt. That's like, I was like, okay, who do I listen to? Do I listen to this guy, or do I listen to that guy? Or, or do I listen to this organization? And it got to the point where I can see where a lot of people were just getting frustrated, not to mention what we just felt like we were getting our ass kicked every turn by the government, or whether it was, your city council, or whether it was a state official, or it was fuck the president. It just felt like we were getting shoved and pushed away. But yeah, I think a lot of it had to do in the beginning was just so many different people throwing information at us, and not really having one organization to just to steer us right and to push us in that right direction.
Yeah. Well, I think because we also relied on those organizations to really sort of, spearhead the charge. It's like, here's our money, what we want, go out there and win it for us. And then when you see these agencies fracture or slowly kind of disintegrate or start warring with each other, that was one problem. The other problem that came in too for a lot of people in their discouragement was the idea that it just seemed like no matter how hard we fought or how loud we tried to be, it's just they just kept pushing us over. And then people start to concede. They're like, it doesn't. Doesn't matter how many petitions I sign. It doesn't matter how many hearings I go to and stuff like that. It just feel like they can't seem to win for anything. And so it's hard. And advocacy is a long, hard fight. I mean, it's not something that's going to just, it's not like snap of a finger. And because somebody makes some really cool speech, it's going to change tomorrow. It's going to be a long fight, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. But
we need that guy. We need that one guy to write that speech, though. We need someone to sit down.
They've heard it all. They don't
write that speech. And I think we should dedicate Tim to that position. Tim needs to sit down and write this speech that's just going to blow everybody away.
Blow them away.
Just
well, I think we're all fighting the same like shitstorm. We're all in the same boat, and it's a small boat because we're the small industry. And then when we're all rowing in different directions, it makes us look unorganized. It makes us look like we don't have our shit together. So it is really important to kind of all get on the same page, because at the end of the day, if one of us wins, we all win.
Right.
So we have to kind of, I think it's really important to kind of just all come together and do that, because I think it's for the industry, at the end of the day, it's going to benefit us the most.
Yeah.
Well, was there ever a point, John, when you felt like it was getting really, really serious, like you could potentially lose it? Or did you always see the light at the end of the tunnel? You just knew that it was going to be a little bit of some bureaucracy to get there.
No, I probably thought I was going to lose it about every 6 months. I think for us, and this is why a lot of the organizations, the associations, are looking at how we've done what we've done, and it is how we corral so many companies into a single voice.
Yeah.
How do we manage such large organizations? And it comes down to the fact that everybody pays the same. Everybody has the same voting rights. So we don't get caught up in these fights. Where, I'll use Juul as an example. They go in, they give you a shitload of money. Next thing, they want to, control all of the narrative. Well, that doesn't happen with me. I had a meeting with the new guy in Juul about a year ago, and we had lunch, and he sits down and he goes, "John, I'd really like to do more with the UKVIA." I said, "Okay, that's lovely. That's nice." And he's like, "Yeah, but we're not aligned on a few things." And I said, "Let me stop you there." I said, "First of all, I don't give a shit what Juul want to do in the US. Not my problem." I said, "If you don't like what we're doing, the door's over there.
Right.
You can leave." And you just should have seen his face. He's like, "I don't know what the hell to do with this."
Yeah.
Well, do you think there was a difference? I mean, I'm assuming there was a huge difference in the beginning of the industry there than here. All of a sudden we started having 23, 24-year-olds become millionaires and e-liquid manufacturers. And did you have that push? Were there millionaires being created in the UK to vaping?
Oh yeah. Our one of our founding members, the guy is probably 28. He's the biggest operator in the UK. He's got 180 stores. Makes a fortune. But he's a switched on guy. Do we have idiots over here or over the UK? Yeah, I've got guys making, fucking Mars bar and Sweetie liquids and all this sort of stuff. But we have nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is now we've got the power, because we've got so many members. We've got all of the large players, the large retailers, large distributors are all members. So we can bring pressure on these guys to either clean up their act or get out of the industry, because we're not going to stock their products.
Yeah.
I like the fact too that you guys kept the vape shops with the adult look. I mean, every vape shop I saw in pictures from in the UK had that adult look. It wasn't like I was walking into some, Toys R Us or some, convenience store. It was like I was going into an adult only store. You can see it in just there wasn't the couches, there wasn't the blue lights and the 18 TVs. It was like, hey, come in, get your shit, get the fuck out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we did have a little bit of that at the start. We had the tattoos and the beards and the guy with the drill, making his coils and all this sort of
Get
shit.
all three things at once: a tattoo, some e-liquid,
Yeah,
and an
it's like,
espresso, and a pint.
And that was one of the things that when I started getting involved in this was pushing for that more Apple-esque look. It's a serious industry. You're here to deal with adults. Your job is to convert them from smoking to vaping. That's your job. You're not here to be their friend. It's not a social club. And I think we've really seen that now move away, even with the vape shows. The last two vape shows, it's like cuckoos in there. You got like maybe a couple of thousand people over 2 days, and that's it. Most people are now just sitting around looking at each other. So I think we've seen the death now of the vape shows, and we're moving now more into the pharmacy shows, the convenience shows, business to business events. Because the hobbyists when we've moved away from that hobby stage, this is now a serious business. Even brands that maybe their branding was a little childish, maybe using cartoon characters and stuff like that. They're all scrapping those now. They don't need them. So that's kind of where our push now is just let's grow up. Let's just take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean you talk about the hobby. The hobbyists are still out there, and those are the ones that, let's be honest, those are not the guys that we need to be worried about, because those guys are the guys we talk about all the time. They will find e-liquid. They will find components. They will find what they need. People forget that and forget that we're not doing this so John, can go to the corner store and go buy my whatever raspberry grape. It's for that guy maybe 2-3 years down the road that has an opportunity to quit and have a product that we know that works, and it's not stuck with the gums, the patches, the hypnosis, and the drugs that we know hasn't worked. And that's the saddest part of it, because we talk about statistics. Well, those statistics are out there that show that these things are not been very successful. The patch hasn't been successful. The gums haven't been successful. No one reads into that. But as soon as we throw that data out and show them, hey, this is working, look at the numbers, that shit's thrown out the window. It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Or we're not even acknowledged at all. Adults aren't acknowledged here at all. It's just all about youth, and banning flavors to save lives. And we all know that prohibition doesn't work. We've been there, done that. Clearly, we haven't learned our lesson.
See, even the antis over here can't throw anything at us on that front. Everybody here knows that vaping is twice as effective as all of the other methods combined in the UK. So we don't even have an argument on that anymore.
I mean, eventually you guys did it with your report, but I'm sure eventually those numbers are going to show up as far as the health side. And how it's benefiting people and as far as not getting cancer, those numbers eventually, we're 12, 13 years into this. So eventually those numbers they got to be there. There's got to be.
They don't care though. Look how much money they make off pharmaceutical companies. And that's the problem that the tobacco money,
we need Tim's speech. We need
all
Tim's
that
speech.
Stuff is too powerful. It's too big. We can't overtake that.
Well, I don't think the UK wants me moving there.
Well, I think the one thing that I've learned dealing with politicians here is you just gotta keep it simple. Most of these guys, and they have no clue what the hell you're talking about for most of the time.
Yeah.
So the one I usually use is just talk about smokers and the fact that 220 people every day die in the UK from smoking related diseases.
Yeah.
And 0 people have died from vaping nicotine. So which one do you want?
Right.
0.
Right.
It's just a simple conversation.
Right.
I think
it's just not as simple here, unfortunately, because at least here in the South, I've found bringing the numbers and showing how many businesses would close and how many people would be out of a job, that does have an impact here.
Yeah.
But I don't think that can be said for every state.
I agree. I think the other big component to this is just that we also have to contend with the private healthcare system, and their agenda is all about dollars and cents, and how much money they can shove in their pocket. And so I pointed it out several times that I saw a meme not that long ago where it was at a university, and it was obviously a medical school of some kind, and the doctor is standing there in front of the board with his pointer, and written on the chalkboard, it says, a healthy patient is a customer lost. Yeah. So, obviously, the healthcare system itself has a different agenda, just because they know that if they were dealing with a bunch of vapors who weren't getting smoking related illnesses, and they're looking at healthy people who are at least turning some of those potential hazards away, they probably frown on that, even though they don't want to openly admit that they would rather see you sick and them needing them to treat you than some silver bullet that got you out of their office more often than not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, eventually, if cigarette use doesn't drop, but yet the public health gets better, something did that. That's what I'm trying to. When are people going to realize that? I mean, now we are, like I said, we're still a new industry, and it's 10, 12 years. But guys like me in my late 50s, Tim, we go to the doctors at least twice a year. We get checkups. Hey, doctors see that we're getting better. We look better. They're going to see people getting less cancer, getting less COPD, and all this other stuff. Well, why is the cigarettes staying the same in sales, but yet public health is better? Someone's got to realize that and see that at some point in time and say to themselves, okay, what is the cause? What's causing this? Why are people getting healthier, but cigarette rates are still the same? It just blows me away.
Yeah, it baffles the mind in a lot of different ways, but even doctors don't have a reason to stand up and support it. I mean, now we did have an article not that long ago that said that a lot more doctors supposedly are recommending it or suggesting it to their patients who are smokers as a way to get away from smoking, because you hear it all the time. Like, yeah, I went to the doctor the other day, he told me I got to quit smoking. It's not doing me any good. And so you hear that they might be aiming people towards vaping as an option to try to get them away from smoking. But we just don't have that medical community support, whereas we find articles all the time that studies are done to show that it's better for you and that it's proven. But like Allison said, they don't care. They don't want to hear that data.
Well, I mean, when you have the same agency that's most of their funding comes from pharmaceutical agencies trying to regulate vaping, there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there.
Well, I even told this, because I had to get a new doctor. I had the same doctor since I was a teenager, and he retired. So I had to get a new guy. I had to pick a new guy. And the first thing he asked me is, do I smoke? And I said, no. And I was shocked. The second question, he goes, do you vape? I said, well, that's none of your business. I already told you I don't smoke. So that second question isn't important. I don't need to answer it. And he's like, well, we need to ask if you're, because, and he went into the whole thing. I said, look, stick your finger in my ass. Let's get this over with and let's move on. That's why I'm here. I'm not here for anything else. Let's get this over and done with. You don't need to know if I vape. You've asked me if I smoke. I said, no, haven't smoked in 10 years. End of story. And I just find it hard to believe that that's the second question that's being asked by doctors. And I don't know the last time you've seen a doctor, Tim or Paul or John or you Allison, but did you got hit with that question?
My doctor was actually really on the fence about vaping when I first started going, and I've been doing this for 10 years. So I moved here 10 years ago. I've been in the vaping industry for 10 years. So when I went to her, I was probably here for a year before I had any kind of insurance and I could go to a doctor. So I went to the doctor and she was not happy. And over the years, I've beaten her down and literally even gave her Dr. Mendelssohn's book. And now she's telling smokers, patients, that they should go to a vape shop, a reputable vape shop, and try vaping, because she's seen, all of my test results and everything. And I had a blood clot when I was 30 from smoking. So, the fact that I show no signs of that, I have no health issues anymore whatsoever.
Yeah.
That was enough proof for her to, kind of change her mind. But you kind of have to force yourself to have those conversations, because one person's mind has changed. That can help so many other smokers now,
Yeah, I was like, I told him, why don't you go outside? Step outside. Half your fucking staff is over there on the street, because we have to go all the way to the sidewalk. If on any hospital property, you have to go all the way to the sidewalk. And go step outside for a second. Half your staff is out there either smoking or vaping, and majority of them now are vaping. So, and they're hospital personnel now because they're wearing those fucking scrubs. They work for the hospital.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that people are driving by. They see that. They see all the. I mean, they have chosen the one hospital. They have to go to the sidewalk. Well, what's at the sidewalk? The bus stop. So now it looks like you got all these people in scrubs standing at the bus stop vaping. I mean, something's got to register. Obviously, I live in California, so forget that.
Well, but I think the reality is that if you really were to break them down, the politicians I'm talking about in general, is they really don't care whether we're vaping or not vaping. I do think that they have a bit of a general thought process that that they don't want to see kids getting their hands on stuff they shouldn't be getting their hands on. But I think a lot of it is just a lot of pomp and circumstance for the sake of money, just to really sort of feel like they have an agenda.
Well, you dig into the numbers too of violations. It's not vape shops that are violating and selling to minors in the United States. It's the majority. The majority is convenience stores and food markets and grocery stores that sell cigarettes. So that's the majority of the the issues.
Well, hey John, as far as that, you're talking about that. How legitimate are your numbers over there in the UK for minor sales? Are they kind of like ours? kind of blown up a little bit?
No, ours tend to be pretty stable. But again, what we're the numbers that our guys focus on is young people that didn't previously smoke that are taking up vaping.
Right.
And that number is still relatively low. It's around that 1 to 2%. So even the anti-vaping groups, have to admit that that's just normal teen trial. It's the same in all of the other these adult products. And I think this is where you guys, you guys have just gone insane over there, because all they're doing is promoting vaping to kids. The more you tell a teenager not to do something, the more they're going to do it. Whereas over here, we're going, really, you want to do the same thing as your granny is doing?
Right. We're making it. It's the same thing as the DARE program. All the DARE programs.
That worked well in the 80s.
Never heard of. It makes me go, what is that? Like, that's all it is kind of advertising to kids, and they don't realize that they're doing. If they let's hope they don't realize that they're doing more damage.
Yeah.
Oh, when they do your stats, is it one time that they've used a vape?
Yeah, there you go.
No,
one time in the last 30 days, and never tried it again.
I think ours goes from that. Have you ever tried vape? And I think that number is still around about 7 to 10%, somewhere in that region. But then they drill it down to more than once per week or something like that.
Yeah, see, that makes that's
is what they deem as being regular use, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a legitimate question.
Ours are like, have you looked at a vape one time?
Have you looked at it? Have you walked by one? Yes. Okay. 57% of young kids.
Have you seen somebody else holding one? Oh, contact vapor. Contact vapor.
No, that could be a bad number, because, as you know, and we've always talked about it, I hardly see anybody vaping anymore. So everyone's turned into that closet vapor now. It's just they're so afraid to be seen vaping. It's like, they wait till they get near their car and they hit it there, or they wait until they get home, or like my ex-wife.
They've also compartmentalized people too, because now more and more businesses are taking on these smoking and vaping policies where they can't have it at work, and then You know, you can't. And even Allison brought up a valid point. I mean, she wanted to get involved with something with the school, and they shunned her away just because of her relationship to the industry. So, you know, the more and more they push people into dark corners.
Yep.
I was thinking about this as we talked about it earlier, you know, and John brought it up, you know, because he's got his own fight with the black market. Even in a proactive environment, there's a black market that they have to try, because somebody sees the opportunity, right? They're like, well, if I can easily go into that environment and sell my knockoff products and find channels to sell them through, I'm going to take it. Well, it's the converse the other way too. The more you compartmentalize it and take it away and restrict people from having access to that stuff, they have nowhere else to turn in many cases. So now the black market sees opportunity in this market too, even though it's a little bit more clandestine, you know, not so in your face all the time. You know, they're like, hey, I can make a quick buck off that person that can't go down to the vape shop anymore and go buy what they want. They can't get their favorite juice because, you know, they wanted that mango peach or whatever. And hey, I got this great little disposable with a mango peach in it that was modeled, you know, very similar
like this,
to
Tim.
Exactly. So either way you slice that cake. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I find that the conversations are far apart and less often had with people about vaping, other than that interesting conversation I had with that girl at the club the other night where she was like, oh, and the popcorn lung. And I'm like, there's nobody ever got popcorn lung, you know? So
did you get her number, Tim?
I know her personally.
Oh,
no,
never mind.
She has a boyfriend, John. I'm sorry.
Well, let me is I always have to throw a curveball at Tim. Are you allowed to vape in the pub?
In the UK?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit! I'm moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no law against vaping indoors. There is about smoking, but not vaping.
Yeah, you can't have a cigarette.
But individual businesses can make a decision about what happens within their property.
Okay, it doesn't have anything to do like us if you have more than 3 employees.
No, we got none of that, and in fact, we've got 3 politicians actively pushing to allow vaping in Parliament now.
Ooh.
Oh wow!
Because most of them actually vape in their own offices in Parliament. They're not supposed to.
I can see them saying, "Well, this, you know, no more breaks going outside. What are you doing to us?"
No, I just want to see the first one of them actually vape within Parliament during one of the open sessions. You know, that would be.
Who was it? Who was it? Was it like, oh God, how long ago was it when what's his name hit that vape in Congress?
Oh, it was the year.
Oh
Jesus
God, that was
Christ.
a long time ago.
Yeah. That was a long ass time ago. Can you imagine that now? Whoa, my goodness. All those old fogies they would faint. They would just, oh my God.
Well, that's like now, like every time you see like a celebrity here in the US with a vape, like there's some big article, oh, they were out with a vape. And I'm like, who gives a shit? They're grown ass man.
Yeah. And it's funny. It depends on the actor or the actress, because it seemed like certain ones got away with it, you know, like Leonardo DiCaprio and what's his name? That just did his show where he had the blue in his hand. Chappelle. Nobody gave him any.
Jackson. Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson, another one. They didn't give him grief either.
Yeah.
And the guy who played Venom, that's best friends with DiCaprio, he uses a big vape mod too.
Eddie Van Halen. Yeah,
Billy Joel.
I think he kind of had to.
He had to start vaping, but yeah, that's the thing. I mean, now he would have been a perfect. Eddie Van Halen would have been a perfect person to push vaping in our demographics, Tim. I mean, because let's be honest, that's the number. If you really look at the numbers, that's probably the big sellers. Is that 35 to 55 age mark?
Yeah, I think celebrities, they walk a fine line because they can be seen as sort of the adversary or the nemesis, depending on how you want to view them, right? Because they have so much influential power from a celebrity standpoint,
Yeah.
that 50% of the people are going to be like, oh, that's the total wrong person to be pushing vaping.
Well, he already had the illness. He
That's
was
why
already
it should have
getting
been
ready to die.
DiCaprio, though.
No,
Yeah,
I
DiCaprio
get
was all
I get what you're
environmental
saying, but I'm saying, but 50% of people will go, well, they're the nemesis because they're a recognizable figure and people look
influencer.
up to them. So why would we want younger kids, looking up to this guitar god who's now promoting this thing that, in his mind's eye is a life-saving technology? And then you get the adversary where it's like, yeah, it'd be great for people our age and in our bracket, our millennium, to recognize that there's someone who's like sees it for the value that it really has.
Yeah.
To combat cancer. Granted, he didn't have lung cancer necessarily, but he was a heavy smoker. Very heavy.
He had mouth cancer, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mouth
Yes.
cancer.
Throat, I believe.
Yeah, throat.
Mouth or throat. Anyway. Enough of that.
Well, I'm moving to the UK because I can vape in the pub.
John, we hope you have space at your house because we're all
pints are bigger. Pints are bigger than what we get here. Because here it's an 8-ounce fucking beer. I need more than 8 ounces of beer.
8 ounce? What bar do you go to?
This is some California shit you're talking about.
The bottles are 12.
Yeah.
What bar
I
are you?
I don't drink in a
man?
bottle. I don't drink bottled beer.
Well, at the bar here, they're like, you want the regular or you want the big beer size?
Do you want to? Do you want to take an? Do you want to drive home or do you want to take an Uber home? Because here, let's be honest, it's 2 beers. 2 beers and you're done. My weight, that's what I was told. It's 2 beers. I can't drive. So, yeah. Paul went to go get a beer. That's what he just wanted to go do. He's like, you tons of bitches, fucking beer.
Keeping with John, so Vapril coming up, things like that. You're doing small little programs. Like, what are the next biggest venture steps that you see with your organization? Like, what are you continuing to onboard? Anything new, fresh, different than sort of the status
on the
quo?
horizon? Anything on the horizon?
I think for us, you're going to see more monthly engagement. We've kind of been rather insular in our external events. Our forum once a year was pretty much it. But now we're getting members from all over the country. So rather than having all of our meetings in London, now we need to start moving to different parts of the country. Yeah. And what we want to try and do there is again engage with that local politician, bring them into the talk, get them drunk a little bit. That usually works quite well.
A little indirect bribery, you never hurt anybody.
Hey.
Well, what we kind of find is when you get a politician out of his stodgy office in Parliament, you get him on his own home turf.
Yeah.
They kind of open up a little bit more.
Got to wine and dine them.
Yeah, well, we usually try and get him into like a local manufacturing facility or something like that. Sit him down and talk about vaping for a little bit. Maybe bring in some of our members to meet him. Then there's nothing wrong with a bit of food and a few drinks. And we tend to get quite a good reaction to that. The other thing as well is you'll see me moving out more into the international market again this year. I know we'll be in Spain for a few days apparently. So Ali's coming over for that one.
Yeah.
We've got the show in Dubai, which will be now in its 3rd year. I'll be in Seoul, probably China, hopefully by next December. So lots of different things happening. Because for me it's now focusing on spreading the positive news from the UK and trying to influence those governments that are maybe on the fence and can be cajoled over. I'm lucky that my membership is kind of behind that now. They weren't initially because they didn't want the club to grow. But now we've got so many international members. They're like, hey, it makes perfect sense. Go out and spread the word,
Yeah. All those places you named are not as grand as where you are in Chicago. I'm kidding. The Windy City.
I don't
don't
know.
know.
Getting picked up by a Rolls Royce in Dubai was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I love it. Well, what do you brought up Dubai? What are you doing there? What's changed there in Dubai that they have now kind of accepted vaping?
Well, you've gone from a situation where it was totally illegal to tolerated. And the first vape show we did there 3 years ago, all press were banned. The police were walking through, and government officials every day. You had to stand on your stand to vape. You couldn't step off and vape. They sat in on every single talks that we did. And we're quite kind of anti-vaping in a way. In fact, I did a journalist came down and did an interview with me, and he wrote a story, and it got published. But the first half of the story was changed,
Of course,
from what he wrote, and you could tell the two different writing styles and exactly where in the article, it got changed. But it was all about it was more like a Friday night nightclub with alcohol and skimpy outfits and loud music and all of this type of thing.
Yeah.
How the industry was targeting UAE youth. This type of shit.
I mean, who was the guy that said, "Let's do this in Dubai"? I mean, that's just. I mean. How does that guy not get fired from marketing? He's just like, yeah, let's have a show in Dubai. Like, wait a minute, what?
Well, the guys are pretty cool that do it. This is what they specialize in. So they just don't do vaping shows; they do trade shows worldwide. And it was just they decided to get into, and they called me for the first year and said, "Listen, we'd like you to speak." I said, "Yeah, no problem. I'll go out and see what's going on." And then I ended up putting half the bloody show together for them from the speaking. And they're like, "Listen, would you be interested in just taking over the talks completely? And you just do that, and we'll do the vape show." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine." So the talks now have gotten really good, and we're now starting to get government officials coming to it. Now, last year, I wanted the MHRA there. We talked about this association. So I wanted to kind of get this government official to government official and let them go and have a chat. But that didn't quite work out. So that's what I'm aiming for this year. See if I can make that happen. But we've got it from, no, you can't have a trade association, to, well, the government is open to it now. You still, but we still have to have, 20 Dubai registered companies to found this organization. So now we got to come up with that amount of individuals that are interested. Then you have to petition the government, and then you have to get a government sponsor.
It shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be hard to get 20 of those companies to a new market like that. Let's be honest, a market that has a lot of money.
The Dubai registered part.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, John, it is a little bit difficult because we were looking at it from a liquid standpoint, manufacturing over there.
Okay.
And they told us that, it'll be fine, but you would then have to register each of those companies then within Dubai.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy task.
Yeah. Well, they want to make sure they get their cut. Is basically their taxes. There's their way of saying
because you've also got the trade zones over there for international businesses. So you do have the opportunity, but it's setting up the facilities like mixing, manufacturing, bottling facilities. There's 2 hardware companies that were looking at setting up really high-end machine shops over there for the simple reason because of the tax breaks that they would get moving to that region for that period of time, and also because it's a hub to many other surrounding areas,
Arab countries. Yeah.
Well, not only the Arab countries. You've got to look at it from many different perspectives, and we'll be in talks again this year with liquid manufacturers. I've got a guy on the ground over there now, and
tell him to get up.
Well,
I'm
no,
sorry.
he's now in the process of looking at what we can and what we can't do. But they'd also now like to look at the TPD, the model of the TPD for liquid manufacturing standards, and they'd like to implement that.
Yep.
So everything would have to be down that same pathway. And this is what I've been working at behind the scenes now for the last 18 months.
Yeah, and this is why I wanted to get the MHRA there, because that's exactly what I want them to talk about, is saying, right, we have a framework, and this is how we look at it, and it's government official to government official, it's health department to health department,
Exactly.
But that's why the World Health Organization had almost shit themselves when they found out that was going on.
They said, "Hang on a second, we didn't get an invite." Well, you're never going to get a fucking invite, you idiots. Fuck off.
Speaking of the Arab countries, I mean, like Iraq shut it down, right? Iran shut it down.
I think what we're hoping to do with the model in Dubai is just to kind of is to show them that it can be done in a regulated way, in a smart way. Even in Qatar, we were close to having a deal to allow vaping for the World Cup. The only difference is they wanted $3 million to do it.
They want some money. Oh, money.
Yeah. And the people that I was dealing with didn't fancy just taking a risk on that one. But there's a lot of things we can do, but it's going to be baby steps. But for me, it's a new challenge. I love it.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of it has to do that just the fear of Western culture coming into their country?
Well, I think the whole region is changing slowly. You look at Dubai, you've got alcohol there, you've got, skimpy clothing now, all of these things that technically are banned are now being tolerated. But I think, going to Paul's earlier point, they do see a huge business opportunity, especially now that the regulations have changed in China. Difficult to manufacture there. I can guarantee you there's several of the large Chinese firms are looking at relocating to Dubai. You've got tax-free system, you've got a cheap workforce, you've got a major hub for the world. So there's a lot of things going for it if we can get the government along the right track. And I think that's just gonna be trying to convince them, I think, that we can put the good regulations in place for it.
Yeah, John, I think you have to look at Dubai a little bit differently, because they're not really like a country. They're a governed city.
Governed.
And it's heavily multicultural. There are a lot of expatriates that relocated over there. And so while from a religious perspective, it's heavily predominated by Muslim faith, the typical corporate and business elements that go on over there are multinational. So there's a lot. It's a whole. The dichotomy over there is quite profound. I mean, I've been there several times, because the company that I was working for at the time had an office in one of the duty-free zones, and they were it was mostly just the sales office. They had a third-party distributor not far down the road. Well, when I say down the road in Dubai, it's probably like 20 miles, and you're on like a 20-lane highway,
super highway.
It's kind of it's very unique. But when I went there, I could not bring my vape into the country, and I was not going to risk it. I mean, I could tell you stories about just leaving, which were, kind of scary for someone who'd never been to that country before. But I can see why it might grab a hold in Dubai, just because they want that to come their way. They're more embracing to the Western influence over there as being part of the city, because it makes it that much more attractive for tourists and other people to come in and take part in, their culture, whether you want to go to the hookah bar and all that fun stuff. But at the same time, you get to see all the great buildings and the cool this, and kind of live the shishi posh life for a little while and stuff. And so they embrace that. So I can see how
that's a new word for the show.
Well, what's that one?
Shishi, yeah. But I could see how, and I want to say, John, that when I was there, I felt like I don't know that it was necessarily banned. I felt, because I saw lots of people in Dubai at that time vaping while I was there, but I think those people already had it while they were there, or had acquired it while they were there, and I didn't see too many people getting a lot of flack for it, and I was like kind of mad. I'm like, damn, that guy's standing over there with his mod. And
I'm sure you could have found a disposable somewhere.
I had to end up at duty free and buy, a carton of cigarettes to get me through the week, which was kind of a shitty thing that had to happen. But it was, it's not willing to lose the 200 mod at customs,
Well, I think it's more. You didn't want to end up in prison. If it was the sports coach that got caught with one bottle of CBD, and he's in jail for 25 years.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to mess around, and
no,
you don't want to do that.
No.
Even when I worked in the racing industry, and I was over there all the time, I was there for the opening of Meydan, the race course, and ever since then, I've watched, as you said, John, baby steps as to what's happening in the region. But now that we're on the same page here, because I know of 3 big hardware players that are looking to go straight over there and set up shop. But they want precision manufacturing facilities. They don't want what they've got in China. Yep. They're talking about moving in there with 5-axis CNC machinery and dealing with, high-end stuff and creating a whole new breed of vaping device. And then liquid manufacturers, they'd like to see full robotic manufacturing facilities over there. So there's no hands-on, but they want to work with US partners or flavor manufacturers that have a much simplified version, instead of having to set up a lab for this, a lab for that, a lab for this. They want it simplified, but much bigger capacity in manufacturing in a much shorter period of time.
We've got one new member actually coming on board this month. That's backed by the royal family over there. So they're backing vaping companies.
Yeah. Well, I think I might know who that might be actually. because a friend,
it's a friend of a friend of a friend.
No, that person might be in contact with the same person that.
Yeah.
I've been
starts with an M and ends with an A.
I know nothing.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about now.
Is his name Schultz? No, I'm kidding.
No. This is one of my contacts in Dubai came to me and he said, "Look, we'd like to bring you and two of your best mixers with you to Dubai to stamp out a whole line of liquids for the region." And I thought, and what are we looking at? And then I was given a list of what they're looking at having made. And I went, oh, man, this is one big headache. Because all the different fruits and stuff that they've got over there that are regionalized fruits. And then dried figs, apricots, pears.
Mango?
Oh, shut up. Yes, mango. But these are the fruits.
Mango.
But they needed these fruits to be a dried fruit type situation, but also some of them, especially the figs, some of the figs over there actually have a salt note to them, which that's not an easy one to pull off. I don't care what anyone says. That's not an easy one to pull off. But we're looking at it and we're still in discussions with a few people over there. And when I was at the Asia Pacific Forum over in the Philippines last year, just before Christmas. They were also in discussions, and I met a couple of people there. And actually, I think you should try and head out to that one later this year. It's either going to be in Thailand or the Philippines again.
All right.
That'd be
All right.
another interesting one for you to turn up to.
Okay. Cállate la boca. Cállate la boca.
Always open to invitations.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to support the GoFund program for me and Allie to move to the UK, please send all your money to. No, I'm kidding. John. Tim can come too. John, we want to thank you for joining us. It's been fun getting to know you. I have all of John's links in the header. I also put them in the chat there. John's Twitter account and the website for the UKVIA website is on there too as well. You guys can do your guys' goodbye, but I again thank you again, John, for taking the time to spend with us. Timmy.
John, thank you so much for being a part of the show this week. I mean, it's a pleasure to always have people on the show that are a big part of the advocacy space and continue to fight that good fight, not just for their own demographic, but for everybody all over the world. And it's a pleasure to have people like you to continue to share the message and keep that positive thought going forward. So thank you very much for sacrificing some of your time. Sorry you got stuck in Chicago. There's nothing I can do about that. So well, I appreciate safe travels and Happy New Year, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for coming on. Obviously, like well deserved. You know, now we can plainly see why you got Advocate of the Year for sure. You're doing a lot of good, and we appreciate it. So.
Hey, also, everybody, big thank you to Allie for setting this up. Allie. Mr. Paul.
It's good to
swallow.
You're really a pain in the butt today, man. No, it's actually good to have you on the show, John. I've been in discussions with you in different forums over the past couple of years, but no, getting a perspective properly out of the UK is a lot better than what we've been hearing here in Australia as well. But we do know that you are getting a little bit of pushback, but so be it. Everything that you can shrug off, you just become stronger in the fight. Simple as that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes,
not a problem. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, season 2 has started. Episode 1, a big bang. We had John on. We will see everybody next Wednesday, same time, same channel, same place. Everybody wave goodbye.
Bye.
I want to see you.